Hello and welcome to this evening's edition of First the Citizens. Today on First the Citizens, we review whether the budget lines passed for the financial year 2020-2021 represent what would be, in effect, a beneficial one for the youth of Uganda. 1 in every 5 Ugandans today is aged between the ages of 18 and 30, which makes up the youth group by our constitution. Today, we will be discussing whether that budget line of 45.4 trillion represents the benefit in much of its regard to the young people in their aspirations. Uganda's young people, of course, suffer a lot of unemployment. They suffer in most of the employment places, vulnerable employment, and so we want to discuss whether this budget benefits them. To help us understand this further, we have the National Program Manager from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Mr. Paul Onapa. Please welcome him.
Thank you very much.
We also have Mr. Wanzala Martin, the Executive Director of the African Youth Development Link, which is also the host secretariat for the Youth Coalition on Electoral Democracy. You're very welcome. To my left, starting with my extreme left, we have the very enviable Honorable Gerard Karuhanga, the Member of Parliament for Ntungamo Municipality. You're very welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And we have the Honorable Matthias Mpuga, the Member of Parliament representing Masaka Municipality. You're very welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. So let's get into it. We'll, of course, be doing well to start with the ministry itself and understand from you, Mr. Paul Onapa, when a budget is passed in Uganda, what do you look out for to say that this budget represents what the aspirations of the ministry are, and therefore the aspirations of the young people of this country are represented? What budget lines do young people, or should young people look at in the budget?
Thank you very much, Moderator. Again, as a ministry, before a budget is presented, we do submit our submissions to the Ministry of Finance and also to Parliament through our ministerial policy statements, which clearly articulate the priorities of the ministry. And these priorities of the ministry are reflected or are informed by the overall national picture, the National Development Plan, as well as, in our case, the Sector Development Plan, which are developed in consultation with various stakeholders, and in this case, the young people. So when resources are appropriated, our interest as a ministry is to look at the extent to which the resources that have been appropriated are in line with our priorities and what we submitted as a ministry, because the mandate that is given unto us as the Ministry of Gender is to ensure that the vulnerable groups, in which include the youth, the women, the older persons, persons with disabilities, gender issues, are embedded and are incorporated as part of the priorities.
Great. For those of you that are watching us, you'll notice that our audience today is a quarter full, and that's, of course, in line with the necessities of our times, the pandemic ravaging us, and there is the necessity now to socially distance. So you will see that we only have a quarter of our auditorium capacity today, and therefore you should not be worried. So the audience today is a quarter full, and that is in line with the national guidelines. But we'll take it from there now to go to the Honorable Member, Gerard Karuhanga. Being a member of the House that passed the 45 trillion budget, and understanding, coming from your youth background and representative background, do you feel that this budget has been helpful in identifying what young people should focus on for a benefit this year?
Yeah, budgeting is a very critical tool for any country to progress in real, tangible, and effective ways. Now, we had thought that there would be more of the appreciation of the times that we are facing.
Okay.
And we thought the executive would understand that Ugandans in every corner of this country are having an exceedingly rough time. So there are some proposals, yes, like money put the Uganda Development Bank, some kind of tax breaks. But in real, tangible, accessible effective approach to dealing with the challenges that we face, we still have a long way to go. I basically went to school largely because of the cooperative bank. Okay. I could say the same for my siblings and for those that our old man was able to help. And it was effective. People would reach out to the bank and basically access money to trade, to farm, and that's how we were able to go to school. Today, when you put money in the Uganda Development Bank, after having closed the cooperative bank, the question is, do you really mean to reach out to these people who are in need, having had a hard beating of the pandemic across the country? Are you really serious about it? Or you are basically giving a window dressing for the sake of, being seen and having elections around the corner? I sit in the budget committee, and I looked at the figures, I looked at the proposals. I kept thinking, but what happened to us as a people? Do we really care about each other? Now, you will say Parliament passes the budget finally. But those who have followed Parliament closely will agree that what we do...
Honourable, you brought up a very important point there. You sit on that budget committee,
yes,
and you follow the appropriation. Did you make effort to make sure that these lines are different for young people? To just interject there.
Sometimes as Ugandans or generally Africans, we have this tendency of us trying to dress in a more polite and decent way of trying to keep things wrapped up so that we don't look, by the honest and the baseline of these issues is that when you have a parliament that the supermajority is one-sided, there is very little room for debate. Okay. So what happens is that everything that comes, a little bit of looking at the face on the surface of it,
yes,
but largely, I think, and this is where I think Ugandans need to push more of the leaders, that we can use these platforms to really deal with the issues that affect
Because,
them.
Honourable, there is the understanding that the reason why you're in that house is to put up that debate. Are you therefore admitting that by the tyranny of numbers, you are unable to do anything about the aspirations and the intentions that took you to that house?
How I wish it was even only the tyranny of the numbers. No, it is actually a total tyranny of economic breakdown. As in, it's more of it's largely a closed door.
All right.
So you come and you have the figures. Honorable Mpuga will certainly explain further that you have figures brought to you, prepared by the technocrats, and honestly, what changes, I don't think can constitute even less than, or probably more than maybe 2-3%.
Thank you. Let me come to the Honourable Mathias Mpuga before I come to what would be the representative of the youth on this panel. Honourable, it seems like the picture we're getting is that because there is a failure on the part of government to make a substantive effort to represent young people in the budget lines, there will not be any recourse in Parliament from Honourable Karuhanga's statement. Do you share that view? But then also, should young people therefore give up on a good budget representation, if that is the view?
You see, it's about the construction.
Okay.
It's talking about construction, I mean, you have a government and with a key duty of budgeting. What does government construct as the needs of the younger people in this country? Because once you construct this rightly, then you mirror them into government processes, including budgeting. once you have the wrong construction of the youth, then for all intents and purposes, you'll have a wrong construction of their aspirations, and therefore the budgeting will not reflect these aspirations. For example, you have a reflection of what government want to achieve with young people. My friend from the ministry will tell you that their MTF ceilings are almost cast in stone, and even if Parliament debated to rejig the construction of these intentions, they'll tell you, but we have these ceilings. These ceilings emanate from our planning processes. There's a purpose for planning. So I am speaking to wrong and wrongly inclined planning. The plan that are not envisaged that we are planning for 80% of the country's population. And therefore, if you construct planning to reflect on a population, on the biggest part of your population, the younger people, and your budget reads differently. Take an example. You have a 2.9 trillion budget as a stimulus to try and turn around an economy that's almost crawling on a flat belly. And then you choose to say, well, I will invest 94 billion in the circles. In the circles, you know, there are lots of young people, young women in the circles.
Okay.
So what is 94 billion out of a 45 trillion budget? It is paltry. It's it's an insult.
Okay.
You know, and then you say, I'll divest 250 billion in special interest groups. My friend from the ministry will tell you that this 250 billion is not for them. What they supervise perhaps is the 94 billion. The 250 will go to RDCs to expand patronage. So younger people are constructed as a tool for expanding the realms of patronage.
Okay.
And this is wrong. This is where the planning goes wrong. Talking about Parliament, where I belong, and my good friend here, Jared, I think Parliament again is suffering from wrong construction as to what is the purpose for Parliament is. For some time, there are sections of government that look at Parliament as a rubber stamp, and they're making it difficult for those who are well-intentioned to function. You see, Parliament does not, you do not cut, there's no collective guilt in Parliament. You move with your head, with a packed brain, and you go and bait for your people. If part of your brain is borrowed or rented for that purpose, you're not going to see things the way we see them, some of us.
Okay.
And therefore, we shall not be able. You see, the people of Masaka know where I stand on these issues, and I've been very articulate. Take an example. This gentleman here raised a red flag from the onset in the committee on the floor. When the budget was read for the first time by the chairperson of the committee, we raised the red flag and said, this budget is a budget for another country. The Uganda that we know will not, this is not their budget.
Okay.
Will you please go back and come up with a budget reflective of the realities we are facing?
All right.
And then the minister says, okay, I'll come back with a refined budget.
All right.
So what does that talk about construction of the situation around us?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a problem.
All right, thank you. Let's take it up from there with Mr. Wanzala very quickly before we run for our break. The idea now that is being mooted by the two honorable members on the panel is that the allocations are very small for young people. He's talking about allocations in billions, but the Uganda Development Bank is going to have 1.4 trillion. The Youth Livelihood Fund is going to have, the Youth Livelihood Program is going to have 3.3 billion. Do you feel that it's as small a representation, or they're just a bit minute in their saying?
I think I do agree with them.
Okay.
That we appreciate the fact that government thinks of young people. Whichever sense in which they think about us is another question. But first and foremost, we appreciate that they've thought about us and they have put in place some of these measures. But then, speaking to what they've talked about, I think it is a little scratching on the surface. When you look at what has been, again, like you mentioned, what has been allocated to the Youth Livelihood Program, vis-a-vis what the need is on the ground, I think we are simply playing games.
What is that need? What is that need?
The need is, especially in light of the current situation of COVID, where many of our young people are going to lose jobs, I think there's more need for us to invest in creating an enabling environment for young people either to create jobs or to access jobs. And I think that need is not being reflected in the budget.
But the government will argue that the budget process, and the MPs here will tell you that the budget process ended before COVID started in Uganda. Are you saying that we need to overhaul this budget or the budget process itself and have some accommodation?
The budget ended before COVID, yes, I agree. But then that in itself also speaks to the fact that the issues, the aspirations of young people, especially those that are reflected in the document that we steward, the National Youth Manifesto, are not reflected. And these are issues that we have many a time advocated to the different sections of government at different levels, both local and national.
All right. There is a discrepancy now in what you're saying and what Mr. Onapa said earlier, that in the projections or the estimates that are required from the ministry, there is a consultative kind of arrangement with young people and all stakeholders. Do you feel like young people actually participate meaningfully in those projections? Because if the complaints keep coming after the final product, yet the concern has been that young people have been included, do you feel that that is a good representation of what you're doing?
I think, I'll maybe speak about the issue of representation or consultation per se. That if you look at even what has been allocated in the current budget, it speaks volumes about what this government thinks about consulting young people. The National Youth Council, which is the official structure of government for young people's participation in governance and decision-making processes, is given a paltry budget. You know, but having said that, again, to speak to your question, consultation is one thing, but then moving the issues that are fronted by young people from the consultations to being able to influence the final product is where the disconnect is.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen watching us from your homes and wherever it is you're watching us from, we'll be coming back shortly from this break. But when we come back, our very small audience today, because of social distancing, will be able to engage in this discussion with questions. Stay here. Welcome back to this edition of Face the Citizens. My name is Jacob Eyeru, and with me I have a panel of members of parliament, youth representative, and the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Now, today we are of course discussing the implications of a 2020-2021 budget lines on young people, and whether they reflect the aspirations and intentions of making our young people in this country better. We'll now go to our socially distanced audience to take a few questions to our panel. Please be very direct and keep it straight to the point.
Thank you very much, the moderator and the panelists. My name is Alex Byaruhanga. First of all, permit me thank the Honorable Judd Karuhanga for chairing the motive to save the taxpayers' money of recent. I'm sure the public is happy for you, Mr. Judd Karuhanga. The staff from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development had his communication. I would have had him, maybe I would expect him to talk about programs like youth livelihood. Many of the Ugandans really would like to hear about it. It has been in existence, how many people have benefited from it, and what's the next move after having given us that cartoon money. I don't know what programs you have, the procedure of implementation, perhaps we need to hear all that.
Okay.
And also, maybe our members of parliament, our challenge in parliament is that those who would maybe think positively on the side of Ugandans seem to be the minority, like Honorable Judd Karuhanga says. Now, what do we say? This country really has 80% of the population being the youth, and the budget doesn't really look at us.
All right, thank you.
My name is Maxon Muhwezi. I'm the chairman, NRM Makerere University, and I'm the next guild president, Makerere University. I come from Rukunjiri. Now, the question is, to Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development are looking at drastic reduction in the money given to social development. And we know that this is where the biggest population of the have-nots, the oppressed, the proletariats, the poor, the young people, that's where they are, the biggest population. Now to the ministry. If by 2021 you had projected that that 280,000 young people will have benefited.
Mr. Guild President, to
Yes,
come.
sir.
Aren't you introducing yourself as a member of the NRM? Are you therefore saying the NRM is repressing the young people because they are the ones in government, and I assume by virtue of your presence there you should have easier access to tell them so?
No, what I am a Ugandan.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a Ugandan.
Okay.
Even when I belong to a certain political inclination, I remain a Ugandan.
All right.
Then also to the members of parliament, who always tell us that there are few, there are the minority, what. For how long shall Ugandans, feed on that word minority?
My name is Akelwanga Priska, and I'm from Kitgum.
Okay.
Now my question goes...
Please speak up a little, Priska.
My question goes to the Honorable from the Ministry of Gender and Social Development. So my question is, there is a decrease in tax collection, the revenue collection, and we are seeing that some sectors are actually practically non-functioning. There is probably the pledges that the NRM government pledged to the young people are not going to be fulfilled in this case, but the budget is way high. In which ways are the young people actually going to be reflected that even the money is not there?
All right.
The country is in pledges. Thank you.
Let's take one more. Mr. Napa, I hope you've recorded that. Let's take one more and then we'll come to the panel.
My name is Micho Gatuya. I'm a student of Mackay University, pursuing a bachelor's degree in biomedical lab technology. We all know we have committees. We have committees right from village to the national. Having NYC, having the NEC, we all know they have a budget of 1 billion that is stipulated. But a year ago, 2 years ago, the president gave a directive for this budget to be increased to 3 billions. But you have seen an outcry from NYC saying there was a directive to increase on their budget, but up to now it has not been increased. And we all know through these committees, from the village to parish, to sub-county, to district, to national level, it is the only way the youth can be monitored, have projects. If you are bringing a MIOGA and you have not engaged the NYC, the National Youth Council, how are you going to monitor these youths and know they are benefiting from government initiative?
All right, thank you. Let's come to our panel now, and I'll start with you, Mr. Onapa. Clearly, you're in the hot seat. The first question from Alex is about the fact that we do not even hear about the people that are coming through the Youth Livelihood Program. Do you have any success stories for what we've put in there? Because we might be requesting for money there when it's actually not working at all.
Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you very much, our audience, for these very good questions. First, I'm happy that I'm on the panel with the Honorable Gerald Karuhanga. We started the YLP when he was a youth member of parliament, and he participated in the design of this program. And clearly, if we have been following right from the media, as well as from your own districts, under the Youth Livelihood Program, since we commenced in 2014, we have reached out to 241,799 young people. And if you translate this into the enterprise that we have financed, it is 20,159. And clearly these young people are participating in the various activities in agriculture, which is the highest at 32%, in trade, in services, and other key areas which have helped to boost the economy. Now, beyond the numbers of how many, you're asking about success stories. Yes, there are success stories that have been demonstrated as a result of this program. First is, the young people are economically engaged. Okay. When you look at the data that we have, is that through the investment in YLP, we have been able to create 200,000 jobs, which is about 4.8%. It is our contribution to job creation in the country. And that is the goal of whatever interventions that we aim to do. The second thing is incomes. We have been able to put money in the hands of the young people. And by putting money in the hands of the young people, you help to, one, boost livelihoods. And I'm very happy that in this budget, or at least what COVID has demonstrated to us is that we need to rethink and look at interventions that put money in the hands of Ugandans, put money in areas that help to boost livelihoods and jumpstart the economy. Now, this is a contribution that through youth effort program that we have been able to do, that we have put money in the hands of the young people. They are engaging, they are creating jobs, and as out of creating jobs, they are boosting the economy through increase in their purchasing power. And this is also demonstrated again in the results of the impact evaluation that we have. That payment of taxes, for example, increased from 21 to 29%. So you can see that the benefits are across the board, both at the young people, at the community levels. If you go, say, for example, I'll give an example of Karamoja.
Okay.
When you look at the young people participating in, say, bull fattening,
yes,
and on a typical market day, when they go to sell their bulls, their monies for the young people, the local government is also getting local revenue, but also the economy is benefiting.
Thank you. Let me take it to your colleague with whom you are accused, the one you're accused of designing with you, the Honorable Jared Karuhanga. The impact evaluation that Mr. Onapa is talking about here also said that the return of revenue, which is supposed to happen for all these projects, stands at about 40%. In business terms, that means we're making more losses in that program than we're making profits. Do you think government needs to design another budget line for perhaps skilling differently for this project, or do you think altogether we need a new project that can get young people more profitable?
So the Youth Livelihood Program should have been a very effective program. And I think the whole idea around it, I remember the 5 youth MPs then was to choose places to go to when we were trying to design the program. And I chose a very tiny country called Lesotho. They had a very wonderful program I'd read about, so I decided to go there and so that I could be able to make my strong input.
Okay.
Now, we had thought that this would focus on the greater majority of the young people that basically don't access almost any opportunity for progress. And so we came up with ideas. And the ideas were quite interesting, that you would largely agree that a supermajority of close to 20 million young people that hardly access any opportunity would walk into a bank in a very simplified program, access money, and then they would be able to invest it in their own enterprise. Now, along the way, we totally lost connection, or we reached the point of disagreement with our colleagues in Ministry of Gender. And largely why? Because they over-formalized it. So when they brought the banks on board, and banks were really cooperative at the beginning, they worked with them until largely almost all of them left. I think it's probably now Centenary Bank that is still a bit active with their fund. Why? Because even the banks realize that this is largely like the loans we give to other people.
Okay.
So they don't really go to assisting this young lady that has come up with an idea on how to translate her own skill into a marketable opportunity to make a living.
Okay.
And so that's where we got a real problem. So the formalization was done in such a way. So what would one do if you want to help
Yes.
or reach out to young people and cause a significant impact?
Yes.
So, and there are studies that have been done. There are even wonderful cases like India, how they have helped women and youth in very simplified ways access money at less than 1% interest and make huge progress in the livelihoods of their people. So the funds must be accessed with existing institutions in a very simplified way.
Thank you.
Don't ask for land titles from the young people, or don't insist on very complicated terms. And
Okay.
that's why after I think the program has been running for more than 5 years now, you still have less than 250,000 of the over 15 million young people probably would want to reach out to.
All right.
So if we are going to Masaka, where my brother comes from, I think we are still in Chengera. So after 5 years. So we still have a huge problem.
All right.
We still have huge
There's a need
problem.
for clarification, and Mr. Onapa wants to clarify on something. What is that?
Thank you very much, moderator. Honorable has given us a background to the program. However, I just wanted to add, Honorable, that there are two programs. There is the Youth Livelihood Program and Youth Venture Capital Fund.
Okay.
The description that you're providing is for the Youth Venture Capital Fund, which is operating through the banks. And clearly, like you've said, there were 3 banks, and then they engaged and then remained. And right now, it is only being run through Centenary Bank.
All right.
But under the Youth Livelihood Program,
Yes.
it's a different arrangement, and exactly what he's talking about, giving money to the young people who are unbankable, who don't have access to collateral, don't have land titles, no interest, and at least we are aware that under Youth Livelihood Program, we don't charge interest.
All right.
We'll have a service fee on repayment.
Let
But
me
there
take-
is a fundamental problem with the Youth Livelihood Program, which is when money reaches the district. And this I have actually taken interest to address it with the minister, and I thought something would be done. These young people, they tell you we're going to give you 12 million shillings. Actually, the youth end up getting about 2 or 3 million shillings or 5. Why? Because there are people in between asking for all sorts of,
So
we
the
call it
money
what,
is going
njawulo.
in the bureaucracy, you're saying?
Yes, the money, and at the end of the day, you want these young people to pay back. That's why the recovery has become a problem.
Thank you. Let me
Yes.
pick it up with Honorable really quickly. And this is becoming an interesting line for the youth. Of course, the young people look at that as the available route into the budget, what exactly comes to us. But we now know that the budget also gives the Innovation Fund some money. Technology and innovation has actually been given 238 billion. Trade and industry, where some young people would fit, has reduced. Do you feel that there is focus necessity for the livelihood program, or do you think we need to now look at a diversifying economy and this, fourth industrial revolution that we're in, and try to mirror that for young people as their best alternative?
The question of the day for me is that does government know where the youth are?
Okay.
In terms of locating them economically? Because before you plan for economic empowerment, you must situate the people you want to help. So where are the younger people? How do they participate in the economy? He did properly state that the bigger chunk of the young people are into agriculture. And then you look at the planning and the financing. Does the budget reflect the reality that we need to uplift their participation? So we have slumped 60% duty on agricultural imports. So is it to import substitute or to curtail participation? So if you are targeting lifting young people that are largely into farming, and then you slump a tax on their sources of inputs,
Okay.
then you have a bit of a problem. I think we have a locational problem so that we can help the youth better. So are the youth into production in agriculture? Are they in industry? So we have so many young people in the informal sector, which is why situating them is very important before we venture into how to carry on with them. The reason why you have competing programs in the Ministry of Gender. One is YLP and the other one is for
Venture capital.
The venture capital. So which category of youth are venturing, and in which nature of industry? So
Okay.
if you are able to address that, then the component of attaching money is on their thinking is not a problem. But as long as you are throwing money around to see whether the youth will come on it like Ensene on lights,
Yes.
then you have a problem. So locate the youth. Then the planning, the financing would be able to address that problem. Can I also answer one of the people in the audience did ask a very key question regarding our duty as members of parliament, who more often than not have the second eye on how we budget and plan. I think there was, gentlemen, I think it was Maxon who did raise an issue about crying minority through and through. You should be alive to the fact that we offered an alternative budget, including advising on the floor of Parliament how redundant monies that are lacking in the budget would be best channeled to uplift the economy. The question of the day is what I began with in my preamble, the will and the construction of who you want to help and how best that can be achieved. As long as the will is just apparent, then you still have a problem. You regard what we say as the difference as politics, as not a targeted, addressing of the problems that are apparent within our sectors.
All right, thank you. Very quickly, Mr. Wanzala, Priska and the intending guild president of Makerere have brought up the issue of the minority excuse in Parliament that the MPs have so elaborately presented as well here. But as young people, you have always presented the view that you are the majority and that that number is a force to reckon with in a country like Uganda, where the average age is about 15.4. So how do you leverage that majority to address the issues that are only raised by a minority representing your voice if they actually do that?
Thank you so much, Jacob. I think the best way or the best approach for us to leverage that is to invest in two things. One, civic engagement, civic education to empower young people with the information that they need to make informed decisions. But also, two, you talk about, yes, we are the majority.
Okay, I'm going to hold you there. We'll go in for a break now. And when we come back, we'll be talking a lot more about the budget lines and how they actually benefit our young people. Stay with us. Welcome back to this edition of Faster Citizens. We are continuing our discussion on the implications of the 2020-2021 budget on youth intentions and aspirations in this country. Where we left it was with Mr. Wanzala telling us how young people in their majority numbers that they like to quote for other things should use those numbers to impact the budget lines to favor them.
Thank you. Like I was saying, we need to, one, invest in civic empowerment because information is power, so that young people can be able to have the right information to help them make informed decisions. But also, too, we need to invest in meaningful economic empowerment. Again, you've heard from the gentleman from the ministry and the gentleman from Parliament,
yes,
discussing back and forth about the little will with which government has approached the issue of investing in young people's economic empowerment. It is more of patronage, and yet we know that young people cannot effectively hold people accountable or maybe even contribute to better governance of this country if they're economically vulnerable.
All right, thank you. We're getting some questions from the social media, and we'll be going to those shortly. But I'd like to bring up something to the panel now that is of great interest, if not misappropriation. The Youth Livelihood Program that is very prominent in this discussion is still budgeted for under the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Yet the mandate to implement it was shifted to the State House. How do you reconcile that against, isn't that some sort of impunity of appropriation?
Yeah. Again, in the Budget Committee, we were all surprised, some extent shocked, that the role of the Minister of Gender, and which should be, among others, to manage the affairs of the youth. At this particular time, there was a shift. So this, and actually it's not only the role, because that also went with the funds, because because now the Ministry of Gender now, even with its small budget, I think now it's even much smaller And then it was taken to State House. And we kept wondering, why State House and the whole presidency? Ugandans need to know that this year alone, State House is going to have a budget, is going to access, and by that's without supplementaries.
Okay.
And normally the supplementaries are almost the same amount as the initial budget. State House is going to access 677 billion.
Yes.
That's about 1.8 billion per day. Now, people must appreciate again that there is a difference between the presidency. It has its own budget as well, the presidency, and then State House. Now, State House is largely the president and his family, looking after them. That's going to cost us, in this financial year's budget, 677 billion. Now, the youth program that still remains, there is only 94 billion shillings. Now, even the other program that we thought would, be helpful and skill Ugandans, State House said, no, we also want that money.
Okay.
So bring it over. We strongly objected to this, some of us. Like again, going back to the tyrant of numbers, we are certainly defeated.
All
now,
right.
but what is the priority? How come we are not making a shift? We are not progressing. Why? Because the priority completely is misplaced. So it's about power retention. So spend as much money in patronage. The youth are basically campaign tools. That's the message. So I'm sure you won't be surprised. In a few months to come, you'll see so much money spread around in campaigns, whether it is the scientific campaigning or whichever way, but you'll see lots of money.
All right, thank
you.
you.
So which you can see in helping the young people uplift themselves.
Okay.
So it's what informs the regime that matters in the budgeting process, and in this case, certainly it's about power retention and really not making progress for the young people.
Thank you. We'll come to the issue of supplementaries later and how that affects any merit of budgeting. But Mr. Onapa, a very interesting issue here is that we have the money going to State House, but we assume the accountability, because of allocation, should come from the Ministry of Gender. How does the Ministry of Gender account for what it does not receive? How do you go about that?
Thank you very much, moderator, and our listeners. First, allow me to provide a clarification that the Youth Livelihood Program has not transferred to State House, or has never moved to State House.
Okay.
The Youth Livelihood Program is in the Ministry of Gender. We have a vote, and Parliament appropriates funds for its implementation under the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development.
Okay.
And that's where I sit. But what we're talking about here are complementary programs that have been established in different sectors, including State House, which has a complementary program.
Okay.
It's other programs, the MIOG and others. So it is having interventions that come together to attain the same objective of tackling youth unemployment.
Okay. The budget committee member has just said that that budget shifted. Are you now saying that it did not shift? What he's talking about from his committee was a complementary allocation.
We don't know which budget shifted. We know that we suffered budget cuts as a program, but we don't know what budget shifted.
All right. Thank you. That's an issue we must continue on someday. Let me come to the Honorable Mathias Mpuga on how Uganda goes about budgeting. The idea when we are sitting in for a budget session is that we are listening to how we are going to spend money in the year. What proceeds in that year for Legion years now is that we go about supplementary budgets. So what then is the relevance, and why should we care about a budget allocation if supplementary budgets are going to come through the financial year and they could go up to as high as 50% of the actual budget line?
You know, Jacob, for the last, I think now 6 years, we changed our budgeting framework by using the National Development Plan, the NDP. The NDP to mirror the countrywide aspirations through MDEs and MDGs and you know, other sectors.
Yes.
We did implement NDP 1 and NDP 2, which expired effectively last month. This month, I think, it's expiring this month.
Yes.
And The new plan should be part and parcel of the National Development Plan 3, which is not yet in place. So effectively, we passed a budget without a plan.
Okay.
So in basic economics, it is planning without plans.
All right.
And which is why you talk about complementary programs. This one is running here, another one is being intercepted. It is just a conspiracy to defraud the taxpayer. I don't want to imagine that the technocrats in this country do not know the planning process, and they do not know why you would need a supplementary at some stage. Okay. And last week in Parliament, we had almost a fight. I should call it an intellectual fight, that barely 2 weeks to the end of the financial year, government tabled a 1 trillion supplementary.
Okay.
It's crazy. And you do not know how they're going to utilize this. So it's basically a conspiracy to be officially indisciplined. They're the one to really use the existing laws to commit, to really rob this country.
Right.
We have no capacity, our absorptive capacity in 2 weeks cannot go into a trillion. They were not booking money for multi-year programs. Those are not the planning language. But we wanted some money to really quickly run away with before the year vanishes. So we are abusing the budget process to filter through other issues. And I'm extending an invitation to the young people, Mr. Wanzala and the young people in the audience. This is your country, and do not be part of this conspiracy.
All right.
Raise and ask questions to the leaders. You are members of parliament. Yeah, you see, Gerard was talking about, you see, the majority. You see, the majority is not that the majority does not understand the reality. We have a majority conscripted into this conspiracy, and for some reason, you see, as a member of parliament from Masaka, I can't do that because Masaka questions. So do other people where you come from question their leaders and what they do and how they do it?
Thank you. I want to take it with you, Mr. Wanzala. The majority of the voting population is young people. And it seems as though, from the statements of the members of parliament, that there is a failure in parliament to be able to appropriate according to your wishes. Doesn't this then represent that young people are actually failing as a populace to engineer some sort of parliament through their vote that is going to be able to present their views and if anything, vote really wisely for the right leaders? Is this a failure on the part of young people?
I wouldn't want to say it's a failure on the part of young people because young people have tried their best under the circumstances. But it again speaks to the two issues I talked about previously, about the issue of civic awareness, which is limited, but also economic vulnerability. Okay. Where, because young people are economically vulnerable, it makes them easy targets for what Honorable Karuhanga talked about political...
Just right there. Tools. Are you therefore saying that as long as young people remain poor, which is economically vulnerable, we will have bad leaders in this country?
I'm not saying that because what I'm saying is that that's the status quo that we have. Okay. But again, it shouldn't mean that we sit back and relax and say, okay, that is what is there, and then we should now forget about it. Okay. Again, it's not enough to economically empower. The two go hand in hand. That yes, empower economically, but also create space for young people to engage civically and make and ensure that. That the engagement is meaningful, not just a mere add-on. Okay.
Some questions from the audience in this section, and I'll start with social media questions. I assume it's a Mr. Mpisi Wachiyomba is asking, since there is an intention to create jobs, do you measure jobs that are created, Mr. Onapa, in a financial year, but also, if you do measure, how many do you know that were created in the financial year?
Thank you very much, moderator and colleagues. Yes, we do measure the jobs created in a financial year. The ministry has a department for labor, and we have a new initiative that will be tracking all jobs that will be created across the various sectors, across the different interventions of government. So there is a tool that is being developed, and this will help that at the end of the financial year, we will be able to report to the country that in this financial year, we've created X number, XYZ number of jobs. But the figures I gave were for YLP as a program.
All right, I'm going to take only 2 questions from the audience in here so we can bring this to our wrap.
Benjamin Tumsim is my name. I'm a third-year student of journalism and communication at Makerere University. This country is a very young country in terms of age of the population. You find the institutions of learning on a yearly basis produce around 400,000 graduates. And you find only 130 are taken up by the labor market, leaving the rest redundant. And then you find those majority who haven't been able to secure jobs elsewhere, they try to use their little savings on their pocket money to start some sort of money ventures. But because of very poor taxation policies, I think that are likely not to favor them. Their small ventures do not even celebrate the 5th birthday. I am trying to find out surely. As members of parliament, I know Honorable Karuhanga and Mpuga come from urban areas, they represent urban settings. They know how redundant those youth happen to be and how dangerous it is to have such kind of people. What are the taxation policies that will help at least a youth who tries to enter to venture into some small business?
I have some recommendations to the ministry really. I've been at the grassroots level, particularly in Western Uganda. The supervision, because we have reduced everything to YLP. We have reduced the youth agenda to only YLP. There's no supervision and refunding mechanisms. So it is not necessary to come and we just be academic.
For us, if we mean good as a people, as especially the young people, it is in our own interest to task government, to participate in leadership. Let's not leave these positions. Let's not leave, because elections are around the corner. The moment you imagine the supermajority of parliament was all strongly, firmly bent on focusing on issues like unemployment and equitable opportunities for young people, helping this young farmer getting a very wonderful source of income or market.
All right, thank you.
If we are focused on that, then would have significant impact as a people.
Thank
so
you.
Let's go and participate in the politics of our country. Let's campaign. Let's run for these offices.
Thank you. Mr. Wanzala, in 1 second or so, what exactly should young people focus on? The one thing?
How do you mean the one thing?
What major thing should we focus on to make things change?
I think we need to engage, continue engaging with government.
So it's engagement.
Engagement
right.
Around coherent issues of coherent planning, because again, most of the issues that are coming out of this debate are speaking to the issue of disorganized planning. We have different, he calls it complementary funds, but if we can have one coherent plan for young people, I think that is enough.
Thank you. Unfortunately, our time is fast spent and we cannot proceed way beyond this point. I'd like to thank our live audience in here, our socially distanced audience, perhaps the first of its kind, for maintaining that social distance. And I'd like to appreciate the panel for appearing today. Until next time, Festa Citizens will return with an accountability of what our leaders do for the people of this country. Thank you.